Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm CB Harris, and welcome back to Thursday's training tip. So today, we're going to take a look at how to take apart a Glock 17 slide assembly. Now, these same procedures work for just about any Glock, and really just about any generation as well. So the first thing that we need to do, and the first thing you should do every time when you're trying to disassemble a firearm, is you need to make sure it's cleared of any live rounds. First thing, drop the magazine, then lock the slide to the rear. Then you can physically and visually check that there are no rounds in the chamber, and then allow the slide to go forward. Now the reason we do this is this next step we're going to be doing is actually pulling the trigger. If you hadn't already verified that there were no rounds in the chamber, this could actually be a disastrous occurrence right now. So now that we've checked it, we can actually pull the trigger. Now this next part is a little bit tricky. We need to actually pull the slide to the rear slightly, but not far enough to actually reset the trigger. What I like to do is I like to wrap my hand around the top of the slide, just kind of forward of the rear sights there, and then it allows me to pull the slide back just slightly, allowing me to disengage the slide lock. Then simply remove the slide, and we're actually going to set aside the frame. So some of you might be thinking, there's no reason I would ever take apart my slide all the way, take all the parts off of it. But the great thing about Glocks is that truly, if you have any sort of mechanical ability whatsoever, you should be able to replace any parts that get broken or upgrade any parts that you might want to. So first thing, let's remove the guide rod and spring assembly. Now there is a way to take these apart, but they're sold as one unit. Really, this is meant to be a captive spring assembly and guide rod. So truly, if you need to replace this part, you're just going to buy this whole piece. Next, we're going to remove the barrel. Simply push it forward and then lift it up and out the back. So really, if you're just going to be cleaning your firearm, this is about as far down as you need to take it. Clean it up, re-lube it, and put it back together. But we're going to go a little bit further. We're going to show you how to take all of the pieces and parts off of this slide. That way, if you ever need to replace anything, or if you decide that you want to upgrade, it won't be any problem. Now, I'm going to put on some safety glasses, and my reason for doing this is that there are a lot of small parts in here that are under spring pressure. The last thing I want to do is have something come shooting out of there and hit me in the eye. I promise you this, having a piece of metal sticking in your eye will not make you a better marksman. So what we need to do is we need to take the striker, and we need to actually, there's a little sleeve in here, and we need to push it down using our punch, and at the same time we're going to try to push and slide the back plate off of the slide here. I like to make sure I keep my thumb over it because, again, there are pieces and parts in here that are spring-loaded, and we don't want them to come firing out of there. Once we've got that off, we can just set that aside. Then we can pull the striker out. And I'm going to show you actually how to disassemble this piece as well, but we're going to continue on right now, and we'll get back to that later. Next, if we can get our fingernail in there, we can pull out our extractor, the rod and spring assembly right there. And this is a very simple thing to take apart. It just pops apart the rod, the spring, and sometimes you have to get your pin in there to push this little plastic plug out of there. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to remove our safety plunger as well as our extractor. This is pretty simple. All you got to do is push in the safety plunger with your thumb, roll it to the side, and the extractor will fall right out. Slowly let off the spring pressure on the plunger and then roll it the other way, and the spring and plunger will fall out as well. Now a lot of times the spring will just stay kind of captive with that plunger, but it can fall out. It's a small part. It's something you definitely don't want to lose, so you definitely want to keep track of that and make sure it doesn't go flying across the room. So now we've taken everything off of this, but we still want to disassemble our striker. Now, the best thing for that is to actually use the back of the slide. It's kind of like a jig almost, something to hold it to allow you to work on it. Now, instead of feeding it through its normal slot, we turn it around backwards and put it about 90 degrees, and it'll just kind of hold it in place there. And now what we're going to do, I'm going to use my fingernail to get on one of the coils of the spring. I'm going to pull down on the spring. There's two little half moon little cups in there that hold this spring in place. So we're going to pull that down, and then we can get these little pieces off of there. And this is what I'm talking about, these little pieces here. And they are what hold that spring in place. Now again, you want to be careful. Make sure you don't let the spring get away from you. It'll shoot across the room. Then we should be able to slide this piece off, and we are completely disassembled now. Now the reason you would want to take all of this apart is you have some plastic pieces in here and they can get worn out. Now taking it apart repeatedly, it'll probably speed that up. So truly, if you don't need to take it apart this far, you probably shouldn't. But there's also other pieces in there that can get broken. You may want to replace them with upgrades, especially the striker. There's a lot of good aftermarket strikers out there, and some of them will actually help with the trigger pull and the feel of the firearm overall. So now let's put everything back together and we're going to reassemble everything here. We're just going to do this in reverse order, so let's reassemble the striker. So I'm going to put it back in here, and then again I'm going to use the slide as a support type of tool to allow me to do the rest of this. Put the spring in place. Now I need to pull the spring all the way down, kind of hold this with my finger, and then get the other half of the cup there in place. I'll allow the spring to come forward slowly and make sure that it's all locked in, and we're good to go there. So now what we need to do is we need to get our safety plunger and our extractor in. So we can put the spring back in the little cup that's on the bottom of that. Get the plunger put into its hole that's in the slide right there. And then we're going to put the extractor in. If you can notice on the extractor, there's a little round part on the back. That needs to go to the rear. We slide it into its slot, and then we're going to kind of push down on the plunger as well as pushing in on the extractor, and they will kind of lock into place. They hold each other in place, so you don't really have to worry about them too much at this point. And now we're going to reassemble our extractor rod and spring here. Very simple, they just kind of snap together. Slide it into the hole that's in the back of the slide right here. And then we're going to slide our striker into place in its slot. And now we need to put this plate back on the slide. So what I like to do, I like to kind of get it into place a little bit and kind of hold it there with one finger. And then I use the back of my punch to push down on the striker. And this lets me keep sliding, and this lets me slide the plate just a little bit further back. And then I need to kind of compress the spring on the extractor rod here, and then I can snap it right back into place. Now we can put the barrel back in. Make sure it's locked in good, and then we're going to put our guide rod and spring assembly back in, and then we can reassemble the handgun. What I like to do, I like to just rack the slide all the way to the rear, and then I know that it's locked in and it shouldn't be any problem. Now after I disassemble any firearm, I like to make sure that it's going to work. I did a video last week about AR-15 function check, and we're going to do a function check on this Glock as well. So to do that, we need to do is, we already know it's cleared. We just reassembled it. I guarantee you it's cleared. So what we do is we'll pull the trigger, hold it to the rear, cycle the slide, release the trigger slowly, listening for the reset, and then we can pull the trigger again, and we know that everything is working properly. Now, there is one thing I do like to do. I like to take an empty magazine, put it in all the way, put the slide to the rear, and just to make sure that that magazine, when it's empty, will actually lock the slide back open. Now, this is more of a check on the magazine, but it also gives me a little bit of peace of mind. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you got something out of it. If you enjoyed it, I ask you that you like and share the video. I also want to hear your comments. If you have any questions about anything that was done here, go ahead and leave it down in the comment section. And for you Glock fanboys out there, if I used any improper nomenclature of things, you can go ahead and let me know how wrong I am down below. If you're not a subscriber and you want to see more videos like this, go ahead and click on that subscribe button, and be sure to come back every Monday for the Monday Sit Rep. We talk about politics and guns in the news, as well as every Thursday for Thursday's training tip. Videos just like this, DIY, tips and hints and things like that. There's also other various videos throughout the month. And until next time, take care, be safe.